Welcome to Linda Walls.
And welcome to our triple TELLABRATION. Today, celebrating about traveling. No seatbelts required. Thanks, Zoom. Only tellers. And as an aside, ideally, an item tellers and an item from your travels for you to share in the second in our second and final half hour. Karen might have much more to say later about that. So, transitioning from that to beginning forthwith. Performer and teacher Karen Golden, who's taken her talents to libraries, festivals, schools, synagogues, and countries, in addition to our own USA, to South Korea, China, Peru, and back to her own story circle class, where her concept of story as teacher prevails. I have an example, but I think I'll keep it short and I'll just say, Karen, what prevails today? Karen Golden.
Thank you, Linda. I had to spotlight and unspotlight. So it is wonderful to be here. And I would like to prevail, I guess, with a story that takes me back 6 years. Exactly this week, 6 years ago, I was in China telling stories at international schools. And between my telling of stories, I had an opportunity to experience my own stories. I went to something called the Szechuan Opera in the city of Chengdu, which is the capital of the Szechuan province. I had the opportunity to attend the opera. Oh, wait a second. It's not anything like you're thinking, because the Szechuan Opera does have singing, but it doesn't sound anything like the opera here in the United States. The voices are very high, everything is in Chinese, the costumes are very colorful, and there's even fire dancers and shadow puppets. And wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start by walking into the opera itself. When you first get to the Szechuan Opera, each ticket holder gets a choice of one of 3 treats. The 3 treats are, number 1, you can have your ears cleaned during the opera. They come with this really long, thin pole, and they stick it into your ear with something that looks like a little knife on the end. Ooh, no, I don't want my ears cleaned. Number 2, you can have a back massage during the opera. Sounds great, huh? Except the massagers are all these really big people, and they come and, oh no, that looks really scary. Number 3, you can have snacks and green tea. That sounds good. Snacks and green tea. I know green tea, and well, I hope the snacks will be good. And so that is what we chose, the snacks and green tea. Back to the opera. We were sitting and eating our snacks, which consisted of these sugar-coated peanuts and green tea, and we continued watching the singers, the musicians, and my favorite act of all, the face changer. A man gets on the stage, he's dressed in a colorful costume, he has a mask, and he moves his hand like this, and his face changes. He moves his hand like this, and his costume changes. Another face change, and again, and again. Oh, it's just amazing. The face changer was incredible. And well, they kept coming by and giving us more and more green tea. And then during the intermission, I really had to go to the bathroom. And so I went to the ladies' room, and there was a line. It was really long. It went all the way around the building and out, down into an alley. And I thought, if I stand in this line, I may never see the second act of the opera. And so I decided to just go into the bathroom and wash my hands and just see what was going on in there. So I went into the bathroom, I washed my hands, and then I noticed that there was one stall that was opened. And when I opened and looked inside, it was a Western style toilet, the sit down kind. Okay, in China, they have stand-up toilets where you have to squat over a hole. It's kind of complicated if you've never done it before. But there was this sit-down toilet, just like I have at home. And there were some people, some women waiting for the other toilet. That's where the whole line was going. And I hoped that some of them might understand English. So I said, could I use the sit-down toilet? And all the women looked at me. Ooh, they said, that's disgusting. A sit down toilet. It's so dirty. It's so disgusting. Well, I got in and out of the bathroom just like that. And I thought to myself, it's all perspective. I didn't want to get my ears cleaned. I didn't want to get a massage. And they didn't want to use the sit down toilet because all three of those things felt disgusting, either to me or to them. But I will never forget my day at the Szechuan Opera. And I'd like to show you a little toy that I bought. This is a face change doll, just to remind me of that amazing, amazing performance. Here we go. And that's the end of that.
Karen, what a great triple treat at the Chinese opera on triple TELLABRATION afternoon.
Yes!
I would definitely go for the massage. I'd probably regret it, but oh my gosh.
The massage looked really scary. No way was I going to do the massage.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Oral and literary tradition, root Angela Lloyd. Feeding her music and personal braid of poem, story, song, and maybe transformation tales. Transformation? Yes, for example, a second ago, I had 1,000 legs. Now I'm wearing a dress. Think butterfly. Of Angela, Barbara McBride Smith, Greek myth teller of Texas, don't you love that? Says Angela's parked diagonal in a parallel world. And now you get to see and hear Angela Lloyd.
Hi, everybody. Lovely to be here with you. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Marion. So we're here because of TELLABRATION, and I was trying to remember the history. As Diane Ferlat would say, mind over 60. I know TELLABRATION's been going on a long time. The seed was planted by a NSN network, a storytelling colleague of ours who came from Connecticut. And it was set up as a world storytelling time. It used to be on the Saturday before Thanksgiving, but it has wings now. It has legs. It's opened up. And I don't know about other states, but I think this might be the first TELLABRATION concert in California for this year. So a travel story. So I was invited in 2015 to go to India to tell stories and play music and work with children for a week. And we need somebody to mute somebody else. So this was all set up in the fall of 2014. I moseyed easily into the early negotiations for the work, buying the ticket. Yes, I had a passport, and I was traveling in February. In January, what happened was I realized that I needed to get shots. And I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it and wondered about it and didn't do anything about it until I called a very dear friend of mine, and I had worked myself up into a very anxious state. And I said, I don't know where to get my shots. And she said, Angela, do you still have your God box? I said, yes, I do. I have to look for it. I forgot I had it. She said, well, I want you to find the God box, and I want you to write the word India on a piece of paper and put it in the God box. And I said to her, like, all of India? You want me to put all of India into the God box? She said, yeah, all of India. I said, not where am I going to get my money changed? Where am I going to buy food during the week? And where am I going to get? She said, Angela, just put India in the God box. So I wrote it on a piece of paper, and my God box, this is not it, but it's an old Kleenex box that's empty, except it has all my things in it now for God boxes. And it has a construction paper label that says God box around there, which is different than dog box, which would be different than Angela box. So I put India on a piece of paper, put it in the God box, and ladies and gentlemen, and ladies and everybody in between, 3 days later, I had all my shots. It's like a miracle, just for writing India on a piece of paper. So I traveled to India, and it was so fabulous. I stayed on the campus of a school, an American Embassy school, and as it happened, the campus also included the apartment buildings where the families of many of the children lived. And I never had to leave the campus to go looking for food. I had filtered water on the campus, and I never had to change any money into Indian money or money for India, because they handed me a debit card that I could use to purchase my meals in the cafe or the dining room on the campus. Now, some folks, when they travel, they like to make months of plans and figure out staying here and going there and looking at this. Most of my travel really is around going to do performances, storytelling. And as a child, the travel that I did was I was going to meet my family or I was going with my family. So I've never been a researcher. So I had a fabulous week. And one of the things we did during this week at this school was we built washboards with children at the school. We had done some advanced planning and learned that you could not get a corrugated aluminum to put in the middle of the washboard. So my husband built a template out of wood, and the carpenters, this is a group at the school, the carpenters, there are many carpenters. They are local men that live literally across the street from the school in what some of us might call a camp, but is a neighborhood. And they made 30 washboards out of wood. And we spent the week decorating them and building them and playing them, not just with the families at the school, but also children from the camp that came over to the school twice for arts and crafts. So it was a lovely week. And what is the object that I have to share with you? I'm going to share my screen. This is the object. It is a beautiful colored picture. This is a colored drawing, color pencil. This is a piece that I started coloring as I flew to India. There's a lot of time to color when you fly to India. many chances to spill coffee on your artwork. But I colored this on tiny tables on the airplane and sharpened my pencils and had my pencils in a little holder. And this little piece I call India, and it's one of the remnants besides the wooden washboard we built as a template from the trip of going to India. And I want you to know that when I got home, I wrote the word home on my God box in a piece of paper and put home in my God box. All of home. Thank you.
Angela, thank you. You're very good at containing what you have to say, and you contain so much. You have so much to have to contain. Thanks for doing it so well.
Thank you.
Marian Ferrante is here at now well, I wasn't quite on time, and maybe I'm not quite right, but I'm going with 29th Telebration. A graduate of the storytelling program at Dominican University in Marin County, a retired speech pathologist, I should go to Marian's class, a retired speech pathologist in the schools and for stroke and cancer victims. Marian is the biggest Telebration supporter I know with me here today. Marian Ferrante.
When people travel, they often pick up souvenirs. They pick up souvenirs probably from a shop, but not always, often from nature that they've been in. They'll pick up seashells, driftwood, colored rocks, feathers. But on my trip to Israel, I picked up a twig. Well, I didn't pick it up, but it was given to me. This twig is a special memory to me, for me to share. You see, in 2009, my college friends, Kathy and Ann, and I signed up for a Holy Land trip to Israel. There were almost 50 people who gathered. We came from different states in the US and gathered at the Tel Aviv airport. We mainly stayed in a West Jerusalem hotel, going out every day for 10 days, several sites a day. We traveled and we walked. Now, a tour is when you go to a site, take a picture, look around, get a souvenir, and you're on to the next site. But we were on a pilgrimage. A pilgrimage is where you go to a site, you may well take a picture. You read the scripture. You take your time when you're at the site, considering how the scripture, how that experience, your experience in the site, how it touches you. And the experience of a pilgrimage changes you. We visited many sites throughout Jerusalem. We went to Nazareth, Bethlehem, Jerusalem, Jordan, and we sailed on the Sea of Galilee. But today I'm just going to spend these few minutes on the Mount of Olives, where we were at the Garden of Gethsemane and the Church of All Nations. Indeed, one morning we were scheduled for the garden, got on our bus. We traveled this bus with the same tour guide and bus driver every day. He took us some half hour away from our hotel, away from the old wall of Jerusalem. The next hill is the Mount of Olives. Over there we parked and we went along a path. The street on one side street on one side and a tall white stone wall on the other. We found the gate. Well, the crowd was going into the gate. It was open. It was a tall metal gates under a portal of stone, and we entered into the garden. The crowd divided two ways, for the paths were going around the trees. These trees that were surrounding the ancient ones, the Garden of Gethsemane. We were here. There were 8 trees there, not like olive trees that I'd seen before, for these were centuries and centuries old. Some of the trunks were small, like yay, but others were so wide that it would take 4 to 5 adults linking arms to reach around the trunk. We took the time to look around, and I see the church is protecting 2 sides of the garden, and the other sides are by the stone wall. These trees are 20 to 30 foot tall, but gnarled. That trunk is so gnarled and old. And we are touched because this is the Garden of Gethsemane. There's paths between them, and it's springtime. The perennial bushes are blooming. We cannot go on the path that reach between the trees, and we take our time around the outside, but the Bible verses just come and flood your mind because you know you're here. The book of Mark says, after the Last Supper, the disciples went to the Mount of Olives. The book of Luke says that the disciples were praying in the Garden of Gethsemane, and at one point, Jesus went past them a stone's throw away to pray. A stone's throw away. Look, that is right over there where the church is. We know in the church is a bedrock, and that church is protecting the bedrock. It's amazing to be right here. All too soon, we had to go. But we knew in the evening we would be nearby. And indeed, after dinner at the hotel, buffet dinner each night there, we got on our bus and traveled again down the old Jerusalem hillside to the Garden of Olives, to the Mount of Olives and the Garden of Olives. This church is right next door, a stone's throw. We got out. We were walking on cobblestone this time, walked a few steps up, walking under a colorful facade. Into the building we walked, and the flooring was a mosaic pattern. This pattern was copied after an original mosaic they found and discovered when they built this church. This church is the 3rd one built over this bedrock, and it was completed in 1924. Many nations contributed to its construction, hence its title. We're in there and looking up, there's 12 domes overhead. 6 pillars are holding up those domes. The side ones are smaller, and on the walls are, one wall has mosaics of many of the scenes of that evening, the night before Calvary, and it touches it at the themes of them. The other side has domes over stained glass windows. Those windows, though, all of the glass pieces are small, purple, blue, violet. Dark blue violet in the glass. And it calms us down. It brings us to prayer. The center toward the front there it is, that bedrock. It's encircled with a wreath of thorns in dark black wrought iron. Beyond it, the altar, and above it, a high mural on the wall. It's tiled mosaic. It's of Jesus laying to the side across that bedrock as he prayed in agony that night before crucifixion. We were quiet and meditative to take that in. Kathy Ann and I sat down for service. The stone was cold, but the people crowded there, seated, were warm. There was incense, wax candles burning, priests conducting the prayer service, meditation, and response singing. Before long, the service was over and it was time to leave, but we tarried. So we were the last out the door. But as we left, we were going toward the bus and a robed Franciscan brother was standing at the small gate of the garden right there next door, and he opened the gate. What was this? We were speechless, but we took that invitation and walked in on those paths that we could not go on in the morning time. We were walking between the trees. Oh my gosh, we could touch the trees, cold, rough. And it just, again, we were right there in amongst the trees where Jesus was. I looked over at the church side wall, and those dark blue-violet windows were glowing from the inside out to this garden. Shadows played upon the trees. We took time again just for prayer and taking it in. We are walking, standing, walking where Jesus walked. We took some pictures, and then pretty soon Kathy noticed some twigs on the ground, for they had trimmed the trees that day. She went over and asked the Franciscan if she could take one up, and she did, and held it carefully as we got back on the bus. Nobody spoke, and Kathy nudged me. She handed me a twig. She shared that twig with me. And I share this twig with you today in my story. For me, this was an unexpected blessing, an unexpected nobody expected this. And such a blessing it was. And as I have this at home, it reminds me of that. And I want you also to remember that you have unexpected blessings in your life. So especially at this time of year, let us be a grateful people.
Thank you, Marion. And upon this rock I shall build my church. Oh, that was an apostle. Was it Paul? Oh, well, I've been transported. My gosh.
So we're going to
That was
travel
Jesus who
now.
said that.
We're going to travel now not far from Israel. It is my pleasure to introduce Linda Walls. Linda has lived her life in Oakland and then Berkeley. She became a secretary for a local transportation agency and had a next door neighbor who was a librarian in Stockton. In 1988, that neighbor invited Linda to this new community event being held at Mills College called the Bay Area Storytelling Festival. Linda was hooked. And ever since then, she's worked with the committee to support the festival. She's been active as well with the Berkeley Mixed Bag Story Swap for many years. Today, though, she leaves her locale to revisit her 1971 road trip through, well, it began in Europe. They departed there and entered the Middle East. With that, welcome to Istanbul.
Thank you, Marion. The road wasn't rough, but it wasn't smooth. And the two of us in our van, Bill behind the wheel, me in the passenger seat, see in front of us, knowing we're near Istanbul, but not realizing we're in a rural area that is rural enough for a shepherd to begin crossing the road, carrying a staff, and herding turkeys. Now, mind you, we've just entered Turkey, technically, and my eyes get big. Bill keeps driving. I'm rolling down my window, and he realizes he needs to stop because I'm the one getting in his way, not the shepherd. I'm so excited, my eyes lock into the shepherd's eyes, and I say, hello. I go, merhaba, and he merhaba'd back. Well, that was all I really knew to say, but I start gesturing because I wanted to take his picture, and I didn't know how to ask if I couldn't speak Turkish. But he seemed to get the idea. By this time, Bill has pulled out his camera and hands it to me, and he's pulled off the side of the road on what you and I would not call a shoulder, but it was off the road, and took the picture. Well, it turned into a convivial exchange with no language, but smiles and a handshake and a surprise, because I never expected to see a shepherd herding turkeys this early in our trip into Turkey. But soon we're getting more surprises. We don't go straight to where we were headed, to the Blue Mosque. We go through and sort into the European side of Istanbul. We stop long enough in a very fancy, almost American style hotel, but not once we got inside. There we were introduced to color, to shape, to beauty, to tile, mosaic wonder. We quickly used the bathroom. We didn't stick around very long, and by the time we were gone, we both were in awe of where we were and what we were going to be seeing soon. And soon we did. We parked our van near the Blue Mosque. There were other vans there. We eventually made our way to our first choice, a bath. We enter. We've paid. We've been separated. All women. They're smiling at me. They're showing me after the change room where to be. And there I am again. Not a beautiful lobby of a hotel. A beautiful domed ceilinged, tiled in mosaic colors and scents of steam and faces in smiles gesturing where I would be. I'm seeing marble benches and marble platforms, hard as marble, but warm. All the water was warmed from walls or below, from where I knew not. And I'm really relaxed. I'm supine, but I'm still seeing faces. Oh my God, excuse me. Supine, and the faces, they're gesturing at me as if they would help, which they did. I mean, I'm beginning to realize that a Turkish bath is a Turkish bath, but only now do I realize how much is involved. There are choices, there are differences, there are wonders, and there is just plain relaxation of being worked on and not doing any of the work. Even the grit and the grime is going to come off in these noodles of grit and grime that fell off me. I'd never felt so washed or so dirty before. But in arrears, I felt that, and left in awe. Met up with Bill. Bill's waiting outside where I came out my door. We gather, we return, and we head after we feeling so refreshed that we thought we had enough energy to go and see the Grand Bazaar. That's what we wanted to do. So that's where we started to go. It didn't take that long. We see it. We're outside of it. And we're stopped. Just because it was so much to take in. 10 times more than the bath. With tables covered in cloth, covered in foods, in textiles, in rounded lamps of beauty and color. Stalls even we could see toward the front once inside the market where we had not gone yet, but with walls, with carpets on the floor, with cross-legged tailors, stitching. We stood there for a bit. We held hands. We looked around. I looked up. The sky was as blue as beauty. And so then we took a step. And together we started going in. And we hadn't gone 3 steps when from the high sky or somewhere, my head feels a wet splat. And it took us a few seconds. It took me a few seconds, but I knew what that splat was, and I don't want to even have to tell you, because if you haven't figured it out, I won't make it worse. So with that and a towel and some water and some wiping, we began and ended early our day for that visit. But I'm telling you this mostly so that you will know that, like Marian was saying about blessings, and even in the story that Angela told, I'm in Turkey and I am feeling as if I didn't know what it was quite like to feel so happy and so surprised and so overwhelmed. And none of this had happened to me in Europe to this extent. And we looked at each other and we realized that we can't end in Istanbul. We ended up having, and that was our Istanbul, but we ended up seeing more later than we saw where we already were, that was so full of places to visit. But outside Istanbul, when you travel and you go down south along the Aegean and you stop in small towns, we met more people than we'd met in all of Europe in several weeks. In one town, there were people who specialized in metal, and they saw our van and they saw that we'd put bamboo up on the ceiling. There were no cloths on the ceiling, so we covered the ceiling interior with bamboo. Well, they looked at that and they saw that they could make a hole in that ceiling and install a pipe and attach that pipe to a can and make us a stove with a door and a latch. And they were delighted to do it, and we were delighted to have it. And that night we were extra warm. And in the town after that, I think it was Adana, we found people who were working wood and they had extra and they had leftovers and they had chips of many sizes. And when they saw our van with its pipe extending to the top with a pointed cover, all they could think about was bringing us bags of wood to carry along with us if we wanted to use it. Well, that's pretty much what I want to tell you about Turkey today. But I want to underline the part about how, and I picked this up from when I was reading about Angela Lloyd. She was talking about falling in, and here we are in fall, but how one sometimes needs to go away from home to find home. And I felt after all of the things that we had experienced, especially the last part, I had found what it's like not to be home, but feel like I was home. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda, for that beautiful travel story. And thank you, Marion, for your trip to Israel. I actually used to live in Israel, so I know those places very well that you described. So we have 15 more minutes left in our show and share. And what I'm going to do now is put you into breakout rooms. So you'll have an opportunity to show something from your travels, share something, a story from your travels. And I'm going to put you in breakout rooms. Those of you who are on the phone who may not be able to join a breakout room, don't worry, just stay in the main room and you'll be able to share in the main room as well. So it'll be up to you to time yourselves. We've given you each about 3 minutes, but we're running a little over time, so you might want to do kind of a quick share. And while you're going into your breakout rooms, I'm going to play one of the instruments from the Szechuan opera. This is called a halusi. It comes from China. And as you travel into your breakout room, you can travel to some Szechuan opera music, okay? So I'm going to put you into breakout rooms right now, and we will see you back here in, I think we only have about 10 more minutes. Is that right, Marion? You're muted?
Elena, I think, was gesturing 10.
Yeah, 10 minutes. Yeah.
Then we can come back and say a little something to all of us together.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to put you into breakout rooms for 10 minutes. And here we go.
Good luck.
Us to talk. Continue.
Okay.
We're back from our breakout rooms.
Okay, everyone is back. So Audrey, I just want to say you have been a huge inspiration on my desire to see the world in a unique way, because you're really the first person that I ever met that went on the real off the beaten track vacations, like your trip to Yemen. I still remember your photos and your items you brought back. So Audrey, I'm so happy that you're here. I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to hear your travel story, but I'm sure it was an adventure for sure. So now, without further delay, I'm going to turn the program back to Marion. I am very sorry that I actually need to leave this room in 5 minutes because I'm Zooming a concert in China. I'm not going there in person, but I'm going to be going to a school in a city outside of Beijing. I'm going to be all week long. I'm going to be Zooming concerts there in China, not in person, but I'll be there virtually. So I need to leave in 5 minutes. So I'm turning the program back over to Marion. Take it away.
Thank you. And let's, for a moment here, take some time to thank Karen for her work on this. And it's time, speaking of that, for the announcements. So,
Thank you, Karen.
yes,
Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And you will mention my husband.
yeah, he's here. He is on the list. So it's time to say thank you to my fellow organizers and their assistance with our MC duties today. Karen Golden, she's of Community Storytellers of Los Angeles. Linda Walls of Mixed Bag Story Swap of Berkeley. And myself, Marian Ferranti, I'm with Delta Wordweavers of Antioch, California. We thank Karen for spotlighting duties. And we thank you, Angela Lloyd, for sharing one of your travel stories with us. We thank Karen's husband, Steve Rochwall, for designing our flyer. Thank you, Steve, for a professional job. We thank the Storytelling Association of California for providing a Zoom platform and for encouraging a joint TELLABRATION event. It was fun. Thank you, Karen, for suggesting a share and show with travel topics. And we thank you, our live audience, for joining us today. And thank you ahead for you who are listening to our recording for your interest in our Around the World TELLABRATION. We will sign off with our video listeners now.
Wait, just 1 second. I see Angela's hand. Angela, yes?
After you close the recording, can we stay on a bit?
Yes,
Thanks.
we're just closing them.